You don't hear the ocean down here. You hear iron, steam, and men trying to breathe. Below the deck, far from the wind and the stars, there is another world. A world where the heat never stops, where the air is thick with smoke and oil, where every step is taken knowing the ship could fail, and no one above would ever know your name. These men do not see the horizon. They do not feel the cold sea spray. They feed the fire, they turn the wheels, and they disappear into the noise. This is not a story of heroes. This is a story of life below. Below deck, where Victorian sailors and engine room workers lived in heat, darkness, and endless labor. If you listen closely, you can still hear them breathing. Welcome below deck, where the ship breathes. The moment you step below deck, the ship changes. Not suddenly, not dramatically. It does not scream or warn you. It simply closes. The air becomes heavier first, then warmer, then thick enough that every breath feels measured, counted, rationed. Above, the sea stretches wide and open. Below, the walls move closer with every step. This is where the ship truly lives. Not on the bridge, not in the cabins, not where the officers walk in clean boots and fresh air. The ship breathes down here, and it breathes through men. The ladder down is steep, iron rungs, slick with condensation and grease. Hands reach for them carefully, because a slip here is not a stumble, it is a fall. The sounds change as you descend. The ocean disappears. Wind is replaced by vibration. A low, constant thrum passes through the metal, not loud enough to notice at first, but strong enough to settle into the bones. Every step takes you farther from daylight. At the bottom, there is no clear boundary. No sign that says engine room. No line painted on the floor. Only heat. It presses against the skin immediately, like opening the door to a furnace. Steam hangs in the air, drifting slowly, lazily, as if it has nowhere else to go. Pipes run along the walls and ceiling in every direction, thick and thin, some wrapped in cloth, others bare and too hot to touch. Valves hiss. Pistons rise and fall. Somewhere deeper, fire roars, not angrily, but endlessly. This is not chaos, it is routine. Men move through it with practiced motions. They do not rush. Rushing wastes energy, and energy is survival. Shirts cling to their backs, soaked through within minutes. Faces are darkened with coal dust and oil, streaked where sweat has cut narrow lines through the grime. No one speaks loudly, not because they cannot, but because it is pointless. The engines do not listen. A sailor wipes his hands on a rag that was once white. Another bends to check a gauge, leaning close, squinting through steam and flickering light. A third feeds coal into the firebox, shovel after shovel, each movement identical to the last. The fire never thanks them. It only asks for more. The heat is constant. It does not spike and fade like weather. It does not ease at night. It is a presence, steady and relentless. After an hour, the body stops reacting to it as pain and begins to treat it as normal. That is when it becomes dangerous. Sweat pours freely, but dehydration creeps in silently. Breathing grows shallow without notice. Muscles weaken not suddenly, but gradually, imperceptibly, until a hand slips or a step misjudges distance. Down here, mistakes do not announce themselves. They wait. The engine room is a place of margins, inches, seconds. Small decisions layered on top of one another until something finally gives way. A bolt loosens, a valve sticks, pressure builds where it should not. The men know this. They feel it, even if they cannot see it. They live inside a machine that is never at rest and never forgiving. Every ship carries its own language of sounds, creaks, groans, rhythms that tell experienced ears when something is wrong. A change in pitch, a pause where there should be none, a vibration felt through the soles of boots. Older hands listen constantly, not with their ears, with their bodies. They have seen what happens when the engine room turns from labor into disaster. When a pipe bursts without warning, releasing superheated steam that strips skin from bone in seconds. When a boilerplate cracks, turning fire into shrapnel. When a man collapses near the furnace and is not noticed until the shift ends, because everyone else is too busy keeping the ship alive. There are no heroics in those moments, only aftermath. The records will say accident. The logs will mention loss of life. The ship will continue. But down here, the memory stays. Every engine room carries ghosts. Not in stories, but in habits. In the way men avoid standing in certain spots. In how they flinch when a valve screams too sharply. In the silent counting of heads at the end of a watch. Everyone knows someone who did not come back up. The engine room is not a place of bravery. It is a place of endurance. These men are not adventurers chasing the sea. Many of them never wanted ships at all. They came because the work was available, because land offered less, because hunger pushed harder than fear. Some are young, still learning the language of the engines. Others are already worn, faces lined not by age, but by heat and repetition. The fire treats them all the same. Time behaves strangely below deck. There is no sunrise, no sunset, only watches marked by bells that sound distant and unreal. Hours stretch, muscles ache, sweat dries and returns. The body learns to function in a narrow band between exhaustion and collapse. The mind narrows too. Thoughts shrink to the next task, the next breath, the next moment the shift will end. Above, passengers dine. Below, men measure survival in minutes. And yet, the ship depends on this place. Every mile forward is earned in heat and noise. Every smooth crossing hides the violence of motion beneath the deck. Without this room, the ship is dead metal floating aimlessly. The irony is cruel. The most dangerous place on board is also the most essential. As the engines drive on, the walls tremble softly, like a living thing. Steam curls upward, condensing and dripping back down in warm drops. A man pauses briefly, resting a hand against the iron wall, feeling its pulse. It is warm. It is alive. And it does not care who feeds it. This is where life below deck begins. Not with a disaster, not with an explosion, but with the quiet understanding that every journey carries a cost, and that cost is paid here, in heat, in darkness, in men who breathe so the ship can move. The watch. Hours that do not end. There is no morning below deck. No soft beginning to the day, no light creeping in to signal a change. Time begins here with a bell. Its sound travels down through layers of iron and steel, distorted, dulled, as if even sound grows tired before it reaches the engine room. When it rings, men look up instinctively, not because they are surprised, but because the body has learned to respond. A watch has ended. Another has begun. The work does not pause for the bell. The engines do not slow. The fire does not rest. Only the men change. One set stepping back, another stepping forward. Faces already slick with sweat before the first shovel of coal is lifted. A watch is 4 hours. sometimes more. On paper, it seems manageable. In practice, it stretches endlessly, bending the sense of time until minutes feel like hours, and hours dissolve into a single, unbroken strain. The body resists at first. Muscles tighten. Breathing quickens. The mind protests the heat, the noise, the confinement. But resistance wastes energy, and energy is precious. Slowly, inevitably, the body adapts, not by becoming stronger, but by lowering its expectations. Pain becomes background. Fatigue becomes normal. Danger becomes familiar. This is when accidents begin. Most do not happen in moments of panic. They happen during routine, during the 100th repetition of the same movement, during the brief lapse when a man assumes the next step will be like the last. A shovel slips. A hand touches iron too hot to be bare. A valve is turned a fraction too late. Steam escapes with a scream so sharp it cuts through the roar of the engines. There is no time to think, only time to move, or not. Men who have seen it before react instantly. They throw themselves aside, dragging others with them. Those who hesitate feel it first as pressure, then as burning air, then as pain beyond language. Superheated steam does not scorch. It strips. Skin blisters and peels in seconds. Eyes are blinded before the mind can process what is happening. The lucky ones collapse quickly. The unlucky remain standing, screaming, clawing at faces they can no longer feel. When the steam clears, there is no blood, only silence, and the smell of cooked flesh. The engines continue. Someone closes the valve. Someone else looks away. The shift does not stop. It cannot. The ship is still moving, and the fire must still be fed. The injured are carried out if they can be moved. If they cannot, they are left until the watch ends. There is no malice in this, only necessity. The engine room does not forgive interruptions. Death here is rarely dramatic. More often, it is quiet and procedural. A man collapses near the furnace, overcome by heat and exhaustion. Another assumes he is resting, steps around him, continues working. By the time someone notices he has not moved, it is too late. Heat stroke leaves little mark. Dehydration leaves none at all. The logbook will record natural causes. The ship will record no delay. During long crossings, fatigue compounds. Days blur together. Sleep above deck is shallow, broken by vibration and noise that never truly fades. Dreams, when they come, are filled with hissing steam and endless ladders leading nowhere. Men wake already tired. The body begins to fail in small ways. Hands tremble. Vision blurs at the edges. Judgment slips. The engine room becomes a place where every decision is made by someone operating at less than their full capacity. This is the most dangerous state of all. Boilers are living pressures. Their strength lies not in their metal, but in balance. Water levels must be exact. Heat must be controlled. Pressure must be monitored constantly. A moment's neglect can turn a stable system into a weapon. There are stories, always told quietly, of boilers that failed. When a boiler explodes, it does not simply burst, it detonates. Iron plates tear free and become projectiles. Fire and steam erupt outward, filling confined spaces with lethal force. Men closest to the blast do not suffer. They are erased. Those farther away are thrown against walls, crushed, burned, deafened. Afterward, the engine room is unrecognizable. Bent iron, scorched surfaces, silence where there was once noise, and bodies. Sometimes the ship survives. Sometimes it does not. When it does, the dead are counted, wrapped, and brought above deck. Passengers are told of an unfortunate incident, carefully worded to avoid panic. They will never know how close they came to dying as well. Down below, survivors work differently after such events. Movements become cautious. Eyes linger longer on gauges. The engine room grows quieter, not from lack of noise, but from lack of speech. Everyone understands what almost happened. Everyone understands what will happen again. The watch ends eventually. Another bell, another shift. The cycle continues. Men climb the ladder back up, muscles aching, lungs burning, faces hollow. Fresh hands descend, stepping into the heat, the noise, the unbroken labor. No one asks how the previous watch went. The answer is always the same. The engines held, the ship moved. Some did not. Below deck, time does not heal. It only accumulates. Every watch leaves its mark, on the body, on the mind, on the quiet understanding that survival here is never guaranteed. Each descent into the engine room carries the knowledge that this could be the watch when routine turns to catastrophe. And yet, when the bell rings again, the men return. Because the ship demands it. Because hunger insists. Because there is nowhere else to go. The engines do not care how long you have been awake. The fire does not care how tired you are. And the watch always begins again. Pressure, when iron begins to fail. Pressure is invisible. You cannot see it pooling inside pipes. You cannot watch it build behind steel plates. You only feel its consequences when something finally gives way. In the engine room, pressure is always present. It hums beneath every sound, presses against every joint, every seam, every bolt tightened by hands long gone. It is measured constantly, watched obsessively, respected like a temperamental animal. But it is never fully controlled. Boilers are fed relentlessly. Coal disappears into fire, fire into heat, heat into motion. Water turns to steam, steam expands, iron contains it, just barely. Every system is designed with limits, but limits are theoretical. Down here, reality stretches them. Gauges line the walls, their needles trembling slightly with vibration. Men glance at them constantly, not because they expect disaster, but because they know it rarely announces itself. Pressure does not surge dramatically. It creeps. It rises a fraction at a time, unnoticed amid sweat and noise, until the wrong moment. A valve sticks. It is a small thing, common, almost expected. Heat warps metal. Residue builds. A handle that once turned smoothly resists just enough to slow a response. The man assigned to it applies more force, leaning his weight into the motion. Sometimes it moves. Sometimes it does not. When it does not, pressure continues to rise. The boiler groans softly, a deep metallic sound that blends with the engines unless you know how to hear it. Experienced men stiffen at that sound. Their bodies react before their minds do. Something is wrong. Orders are shouted, not panicked, but urgent. Another valve is opened. Water is adjusted. Fire is reduced. The system strains, balances, hesitates. Sometimes balance returns. Other times it does not. A seam weakens under years of stress. Rivets loosen microscopically, one by one. Iron fatigues silently. The boiler holds, right up until it no longer can. The explosion, when it comes, is not a fireball like in stories. It is a tearing, a violent release of pressure that turns structure into shrapnel. Steam erupts outward with lethal force, scalding everything it touches. Iron plates shear free, ricocheting through confined space. Men closest to the boiler are gone instantly. Not burned, not crushed, gone. Those farther away are thrown to the ground, slammed into walls, buried under debris. The noise is overwhelming, not loud, but absolute. A wall of sound that leaves ears ringing, minds blank. When silence returns, it feels unnatural. Steam clouds the room, obscuring everything. Shapes move slowly within it. Coughing begins, harsh, wet, desperate. Men stumble blindly, hands outstretched, faces blistered, eyes ruined. Some do not move at all. Survivors will later say they smelled the explosion before they understood it. Burnt oil, hot metal, something unmistakably human. Above deck, the ship shudders. Passengers feel it as a brief tremor beneath their feet. Cutlery rattles. Conversations pause. Someone laughs nervously. An officer assures them all is well. Below, the engine room is a ruin. Those not injured begin working immediately. There is no choice. Fires must be controlled. Remaining boilers stabilized. The ship cannot be allowed to die entirely. Bodies are moved only when they obstruct essential tasks. There is no ceremony. Men who moments ago worked side by side now lie unrecognizable, covered in debris, skin blistered beyond recognition. Identification becomes difficult. Faces are burned, clothes shredded, names dissolve into silence. Eventually, when the immediate danger has passed, the dead are gathered, wrapped in whatever cloth is available. Hammocks, tarps, spare canvas. Some ships commit the bodies to the sea quickly. There is no space to keep them, no refrigeration, no time. A brief pause on deck, a weighted bundle, a splash. The ocean closes without comment. Others wait until port, the dead stored in corners of the ship, the smell masked as best it can be. No one speaks of them unless asked. Records will list numbers, not stories, not families, not the fact that many of these men never expected to die at sea, only to work there. After an explosion, the engine room changes. Even when repairs are made, even when replacement plates are bolted into place, something remains altered. The men work more slowly. They flinch at sharp sounds. They avoid certain positions unconsciously, even if those spots are now safe. Pressure is no longer abstract. It is remembered. New hands joining the ship sense it immediately. They are told what happened in fragments, warnings disguised as advice. Watch that gauge. Never trust that valve. Stand clear of that wall. They nod, not fully understanding. They will. Pressure builds again. It always does. Every mile traveled is another test of iron and human endurance. Boilers that survived one failure are weakened by it. Repairs are imperfect. Materials vary. Time works patiently. Another ship, another crossing, another watch. Somewhere below deck, a gauge needle trembles a fraction higher than it should, and no one notices. Fire below. When night erupts. Night changes nothing below deck. It only removes the illusion that the world above still exists. There is no darkness in the engine room at night, only deeper shadow between flames. The furnaces glow steadily, casting uneven light across iron walls and sweating bodies. Lamps flicker, their glass clouded by soot, their light weak against the constant fire. The ship sleeps. Below, the work continues. Night watches are the most dangerous. Bodies are already exhausted from the day. Muscles ache in a dull, persistent way. Eyes struggle to focus through steam and heat. The mind slows, drifting for brief moments when it should remain sharp. This is when fire finds its opening. Coal dust hangs invisibly in the air, settling on surfaces, clinging to skin and cloth. It is harmless until disturbed, until a sudden movement, a dropped shovel, a burst of steam lifts it into suspension. Coal dust is fuel. All it needs is a spark. Sometimes that spark comes from a careless tool striking iron. Sometimes from a cracked lamp filament. Sometimes from the furnace itself, coughing embers outward like a living thing. The ignition is instantaneous. A flash, bright, violent, impossible to ignore. Flame races through the air, feeding on dust, oxygen, panic. Men recoil instinctively, but there is nowhere to run. Fire moves faster than bodies already weakened by heat. Clothes ignite. Hair catches. Skin blisters in seconds. Someone screams, a raw, animal sound that cuts through the engine noise like a blade. Another man throws himself to the ground, rolling, smothering flames with his own body. Others beat at burning fabric with rags, hands, anything they can reach. Fire in the engine room does not spread politely. It leaps, along pipes, across walls coated in grease, into narrow passages where heat concentrates and escape narrows to nothing. Steam valves hiss as heat warps metal, releasing bursts of scalding vapor that blind and burn simultaneously. Visibility collapses. Smoke fills the space, thick and choking, burning lungs with every breath. Men cough violently, doubling over, retching. Some lose their footing, collapsing onto iron floors still hot from the day's work. Those who fall are in the most danger. Flames climb upward. Smoke rises. Air near the floor thins, becomes poisonous. Men crawling instinctively find no relief. The engine room is a box, sealed and unforgiving. Someone reaches the fire suppression equipment. Buckets, hoses, whatever is available. Water hits flame with a violent hiss, turning instantly to steam. It helps, but it also blinds, burns, disorients. Minutes stretch into something unreal. Time fractures. When the fire finally dies, starved of fuel or beaten down by desperate hands, what remains is devastation. Scorched iron, melted fittings, charred cloth clinging to bodies that no longer move. Burn victims are the most difficult to help. Those still alive are often beyond saving. Skin sloughs away. Pain overwhelms speech. Shock sets in quickly. The men who carry them upward do so gently, knowing it will make no difference. Above deck, night air feels impossibly cold. Those who survive the fire will remember the contrast. The shock of cool wind on overheated skin, the stars overhead, indifferent and distant. Some will vomit. Some will weep quietly. Others will simply sit, staring, unable to process what has happened. The dead are counted. Again. At night, death feels more final. There are fewer witnesses, fewer records, fewer questions. Officers prefer not to wake passengers. Logs are written in the morning, details softened, language chosen carefully. A small fire, contained quickly, losses regrettable. Below deck, men scrub soot from walls, repair what can be repaired, replace burned fittings. The engines must be ready by dawn. The ship cannot afford weakness. Those who died are spoken of briefly, then not at all. There is no space for grief in a place that demands constant attention. Memory becomes a liability. The night watch continues. Fatigue deepens. Adrenaline fades. Pain returns, sharper than before. The smell of smoke lingers, clinging to everything, impossible to remove entirely. Every shadow now looks like flame. Every hiss sounds like ignition. Men work more slowly, cautiously, haunted by what they have just seen, or by what they narrowly escaped. They know fires are not rare. They know this will not be the last. Fire is patient. It waits for dust to gather again, for vigilance to slip, for exhaustion to dull reactions just enough. Somewhere below deck, embers glow quietly, contained for now. The furnaces resume their steady rhythm. Steam rises. Iron expands and contracts. The ship moves on through the dark. Passengers sleep. Below, men work with the knowledge that the next eruption may come without warning, and that when fire breaks loose in the heart of the ship, there is nowhere to hide. Night does not protect them. It only conceals the danger until it strikes.
Water rising.
When the sea comes below. Water is patient. It does not explode. It does not roar. It enters quietly, drop by drop, until it owns the room. Below deck, the first sign is rarely dramatic. A damp patch on the floor. A thin line of moisture running down an iron wall. A drip that does not belong to steam or condensation. Men notice these things. They have to. Because water does not announce failure. It reveals it. A gasket weakens under heat and pressure. A seam opens microscopically after years of vibration. A pipe corrodes from the inside, thinning until it can no longer hold. Salt water finds every weakness. It creeps into places fire cannot reach. At first, it seems manageable. Buckets are brought, pumps engaged, rags stuffed into seams. Men work quickly, calmly, knowing that small leaks are common and often contained. But the sea does not negotiate. As the ship pushes forward, pressure outside increases. Each wave forces water harder against the hull. What began as a trickle becomes a steady stream. The floor grows slick beneath boots. Tools slip from sweating hands. The sound changes. A new noise joins the engines, the unmistakable rush of water where there should be none. Pumps strain as they are brought fully online. Their rhythm competes with the engines, a frantic counterbeat. Hoses are dragged into place, valves turned, orders shouted. Still, the water rises. Ankle deep first, then shin deep. Cold bites through soaked clothing instantly. Heat from the furnaces clashes with icy seawater, creating thick fog that blinds and disorients. Visibility collapses. Men shout warnings they cannot see. Electric lamps sputter. One goes out, then another. Darkness begins to pool in corners, creeping outward as water climbs wiring and fixtures. Shadows deepen. Depth becomes impossible to judge. A step taken confidently moments before now plunges into unseen water. Men stumble. One falls hard, cracking his head against iron. He does not rise. Water flows around his body as others move past, unable to stop. The pumps cannot keep up. They were never designed to fight the sea itself, only to manage it. As water floods in faster than it can be expelled, the truth becomes unavoidable. The engine room is losing. Someone orders the fires damped. Coal is pulled back. Steam production reduced. The engines slow slightly, reluctantly. The ship feels heavy now, sluggish. Above deck, officers notice. Below, the fight turns desperate. Men wade through rising water, now knee-deep, then waist-deep. The cold drains strength quickly. Muscles stiffen. Breath shortens. Heavy boots fill, pulling legs downward with each step. The noise is overwhelming. Engines, pumps, rushing water, shouted commands echoing off iron walls. Panic presses in, even as discipline holds it barely at bay. A man slips beneath the surface. He goes down silently, caught by machinery or debris unseen in the murk. Others grab for him, hands closing on empty water. The current pulls him away, dragging his body into darkness. There is no time to search. Another man is pinned against a wall as water surges suddenly, a powerful wave forcing him sideways. His ribs crack audibly. He screams once before the sound is swallowed by the room. As water rises past the waist, then the chest, movement becomes nearly impossible. The engine room was never meant to be flooded. Ladders are slick, exits narrow. Steam and fog erase orientation. Men lose track of where they are. The lights go out completely. Now there is only sound, breathing, shouting, water rushing higher.
Someone finds the ladder and begins climbing, slipping repeatedly, boots heavy with water. Others follow blindly, grabbing at legs, belts, anything solid. The ladder sways under their combined weight. Below, those who do not reach it in time are already drowning. Drowning in an engine room is not like drowning in open water. There is no space to thrash, no direction to swim. Bodies collide with machinery, pipes, walls. Water churns violently, filling lungs with freezing salt. Some men cling to iron, fingers slipping as strength fades. Others are knocked unconscious and sink immediately. Above deck, alarms finally sound. The ship slows further. Orders are given. Hatches are sealed. The engine room is sacrificed. Those who made it out collapse on deck, gasping, shivering violently despite the residual heat in their bodies. Blankets are thrown over them. Faces are pale, eyes unfocused. They listen. Below them, the engines sputter, then fall silent. Pumps continue briefly, then stop. Water claims the space completely. The ship survives, barely. The sea retreats as pressure equalizes. Damage is assessed. Repairs will be made at the next port, if one is reached. The loss is recorded. Several men lost during flooding below deck. Names may be listed, or not. The engine room will be drained eventually. Bodies recovered where possible. Some will be found tangled in machinery, others pressed into corners by the force of water. Some will not be found at all. The sea keeps what it takes. Those who lived carry the memory differently than fire or explosion. Water is quieter, slower, more personal. It fills the lungs gently, inexorably, without drama. Afterward, survivors avoid standing water instinctively. They flinch at the sound of rushing liquid. They listen constantly for drips that others would ignore. They know now. The sea does not only surround the ship, it waits beneath it. And when it comes below deck, it does not leave until it is finished. The machines. When metal takes hold. The machines never stop. They slow, they strain, they shudder under load, but they do not rest. Below deck, motion is constant. Shafts turn endlessly. Pistons rise and fall with brutal regularity. Flywheels spin, smooth and heavy, their momentum unforgiving. Belts run taut between wheels, humming softly as they translate power from one place to another. The machinery is precise. It is also merciless. There are no guards on most moving parts, no barriers, no emergency stops within easy reach. Space is limited, visibility poor, footing uncertain. Men work inches from components capable of tearing bone from body without slowing. Experience keeps them alive, until it does not. Loose clothing is a danger. A sleeve brushes too close to a spinning shaft. Fabric catches. There is no warning, no gradual pull. The force is sudden and absolute. The machine does not drag, it claims. A man is yanked forward violently, his body slamming against iron. The sleeve tears, saving his life by inches. Or it does not. If it does not, his arm twists unnaturally, joints failing under forces they were never meant to endure. Bones snap audibly. The machine continues to turn. Others rush in, grabbing at him, pulling backward with everything they have. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes they only make it worse, adding their own weight to the force already tearing him apart. When flesh gives way before metal, the result is grotesque and immediate. Limbs are crushed, mangled, removed entirely. Blood sprays hot against cold iron, hissing where it meets steam. There is screaming. Not for long. More often, the most dangerous moments come during maintenance. A brief lull. A machine slowed but not fully stopped. A misunderstanding between shifts. Someone assumes power has been cut. It has not. A hand reaches into a housing to adjust a jammed component. Fingers close around metal just as the machine surges back to life. The hand disappears. The arm follows. The sound is unmistakable. Not loud. Wet. Men freeze for a fraction of a second too long, shocked into stillness by what they are witnessing. When they move again, it is already over. The machine has taken what it wanted. Stopping it now only preserves what remains. The injured man does not always die immediately. Sometimes he survives long enough to understand what has happened. Shock dulls pain initially, granting a cruel clarity. He looks down at where his limb should be and sees only ruin. Blood pulses in rhythm with the engines, pooling on the floor, carried away by vibration. Others apply pressure desperately. Belts are torn into tourniquets. Rags are pressed against wounds. Someone shouts for the surgeon, though everyone knows how little that will matter. Below deck, medical help is limited. Amputations are performed only when absolutely necessary, and often too late. Infection is a constant threat. Heat and grime turn wounds septic quickly. Many who survive the machinery die days later, quietly, above deck, out of sight. Others never leave the engine room alive. There are places where blood stains never quite fade, no matter how often they are scrubbed. Corners where men instinctively avert their eyes. Spots avoided without discussion. The machines remember. They bear scratches, dents, discolorations where flesh once met metal. These marks are not repaired. They serve as warnings more effective than any instruction. New men are shown these places. They nod. They learn quickly. Fatigue makes the machines more dangerous than malice ever could.
Tired hands slip. Judgment fails. Reaction times slow. A man miscalculates distance by inches, and inches are everything here. During long watches, some begin to feel detached from their own bodies. Movements become automatic. Awareness narrows. The world reduces to rhythm and repetition. This is when the machines strike most often, not because they are evil, but because they are indifferent. They do not distinguish between experienced hands and new ones, between careful men and careless ones, between the strong and the weak. They respond only to physics, momentum, force, contact. After a fatal accident, the engine room grows quieter for a time. Movements slow, voices lower. Men glance more often at spinning shafts, at belts, at pistons pounding endlessly. They know the calm will not last. Soon, routine will return. Familiarity will dull fear. The machines will become background again, until the next mistake, the next failure, the next moment when metal and flesh meet without mercy. The ship moves on. The engines turn. And below deck, the machines wait patiently for hands to slip, for balance to falter, for exhaustion to erase caution. They have all the time in the world.
The silence after. Men who came back changed. The loudest moment below deck is not the explosion, it is what comes after. When the engines resume their steady rhythm, when the steam thins, when the fire returns to its controlled burn, and no one speaks. After catastrophe, the engine room enters a different state. The machinery sounds the same, the heat remains unchanged, the work resumes as required, but something essential has shifted. The men move more carefully now, not out of fear alone, but out of awareness. They have seen what happens when routine breaks. The survivors carry it in their bodies first. Hands tremble slightly when gripping tools. Breathing becomes shallow without reason. Eyes linger too long on gauges, on valves, on spinning shafts. Sleep becomes unreliable. Above deck, bunks vibrate softly with the motion of the ship. The noise never stops completely. It seeps into dreams, twisting them into endless repetitions of work, of falling, of being trapped. Some men wake suddenly, gasping, convinced they are still below. Others do not wake at all. They lie staring into darkness, waiting for exhaustion to take them again. Conversation changes. Jokes disappear. Casual talk fades. Men speak only when necessary, voices low, efficient. Laughter feels inappropriate now, as if it might invite disaster back into the room. The dead are rarely mentioned by name. Not because they are forgotten, but because speaking their names makes them present again. It reminds everyone how close they came to joining them. Each man begins to carry his own private reckoning. One remembers the heat of fire on his face. Another hears the sound of metal tearing in his head, over and over. Another cannot wash the feeling of water filling his lungs from his mind, even though he survived. There is no language for this, no diagnosis, no treatment. The Victorian world does not recognize trauma. It recognizes only weakness or endurance. Men are expected to return to work once wounds close, once bones knit, once burns scar over. What lingers beneath the skin is ignored. Some men become hypervigilant. They watch constantly, rarely blinking, nerves stretched tight. Every hiss of steam feels like the beginning of disaster. Every vibration feels wrong. They burn out quickly. Others do the opposite. They withdraw inward, numbing themselves to danger. They work mechanically, eyes dull, movements slow but precise. These men are the most dangerous, not because they are careless, but because they no longer react. When something goes wrong, they hesitate, and hesitation below deck is fatal. There are men who ask to be reassigned after major accidents. They are denied. There is no surplus of labor willing to descend into heat and noise. There is no allowance for fear. Some drink more heavily when off watch. Alcohol dulls memory, blunts the edge of panic. It also worsens exhaustion, slows reflexes, deepens despair. Others turn inward completely, becoming quiet to the point of invisibility. They eat little. They sleep poorly. They work without complaint. These men often disappear quietly. A fall down a ladder, a slip near machinery, a misjudged step into darkness. Accidents, officially. The ship's structure offers no place for grief. There are no pauses for mourning. The sea allows no stillness. Work continues because it must. When bodies are buried at sea, survivors watch in silence. Some remove their caps. Some stare straight ahead. Others do not attend at all. The ocean closes quickly. There is no marker, no sign that anyone ever lived there. Over time, scars accumulate, physical and otherwise. Burn marks, missing fingers, limps, hollow eyes. Men begin to look older than their years, faces lined deeply, posture permanently bent by labor. They are called experienced hands. They are called reliable. They are called fortunate. But fortune is relative below deck. Those who remain long enough begin to accept something quietly, without discussion. They stop imagining futures. They stop planning beyond the next port, the next watch, the next meal. Life contracts. Survival becomes the only measure of success. The engine room becomes a place not just of danger, but of inevitability. Men speak of accidents as if they are scheduled events, not random ones. It happens to everyone eventually. If not you, then someone near you. This belief is not superstition. It is observation. The silence after disaster never fully fades. It lingers beneath the noise, beneath the fire, beneath the motion of the ship. It follows men even when they leave the sea, echoing in quiet rooms, in still nights, in moments when nothing seems wrong. Some carry it for the rest of their lives. Others do not carry it for long. Below deck, survival leaves marks that cannot be scrubbed away. And the men who come back from catastrophe are never the same as the ones who went in. The system. When death becomes routine. The ship does not mourn, it records. After disaster, after fire or flood or crushed bone, the machinery of authority begins to move, smooth, practiced, efficient. Reports are written, times noted, causes assigned, language chosen carefully to contain chaos within acceptable margins. Mechanical failure, unavoidable accident, losses sustained. Words are selected not to explain, but to close the matter. Above deck, officers meet briefly. They stand in clean uniforms, faces composed, voices low. They speak of schedules, of delays, of coal consumption, of port arrival times. The dead are mentioned only as numbers, if at all. How many men lost? How many still fit for duty? How many replacements will be required? Below deck, survivors feel the shift immediately. They are no longer witnesses to catastrophe. They are variables in a calculation. Work resumes quickly.
sometimes too quickly. Damaged sections are isolated. Temporary repairs are approved. Full repairs can wait until port, or the next port, or the one after that. The ship must move. Delays cost money. Cargo spoils. Passengers complain. Risk is assessed and accepted. There is no malice in this system. That is what makes it effective. Decisions are made at a distance from heat and steam, from blood and screams. Risk is abstract when viewed from above. Men become interchangeable units of labor. If one fails, another can be found. Engine room crews are recruited from desperation, from ports where hunger outweighs fear, from men with few alternatives and fewer questions. Contracts are short. Wages are just enough. Promises are vague. Hazards are implied but never detailed. New hands descend below deck with no real understanding of what they are entering. They are told to listen, to obey, to work hard. They are not told how often things go wrong, only that they must be prepared. Prepared for what is never specified. After major incidents, inspections are announced. Inspectors walk the engine room with notebooks and measured expressions. They nod at repairs. They tap pipes. They ask questions phrased to elicit reassuring answers. They do not stay long. They do not work the watches. Their reports reflect what they are shown. The system functions best when everyone understands their role. Men below deck learn quickly not to complain. Complaints mark them as troublesome. Trouble leads to reassignment, dismissal, blacklisting. Silence is safer. Endurance is rewarded, not with comfort, but with continued employment. In this way, death becomes normalized. It is spoken of obliquely. He didn't make it back up. There was an incident. The sea took him. Language smooths rough edges. It distances. It protects those who do not have to descend into heat and darkness. Over time, even survivors begin to adopt this language, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Naming the truth fully, every time, would be unbearable. The system relies on this quiet adaptation, on men accepting that loss is inevitable, on the belief that accidents are the cost of progress, that steam and speed demand sacrifice. And sacrifice always comes from the same place, below. When ships arrive in port, the contrast is stark. Passengers disembark, laughing, stretching stiff limbs, grateful for the journey's end. They speak of rough seas, of delayed meals, of uncomfortable bunks. They do not speak of the engine room. They never saw it. Below-deck crews disperse quickly, some to taverns, some to lodging houses, some to hospitals. The dead are processed through official channels, if they are recovered at all. Compensation, if offered, is minimal and delayed. Families are notified by letter, sometimes weeks later, sometimes never. The ship sails again. Repairs may be made, or not. New men are hired. Old ones return to the heat. The system resets, unchanged by loss. This repetition is its strength. It absorbs tragedy without interruption. Those who work within it come to understand a harsh truth. Survival is not rewarded. It is merely noticed. A man who lives through catastrophe is not celebrated. He is expected to return to work. Those who cannot are quietly removed. Over time, men internalize the system's logic. They stop expecting protection. They stop imagining accountability. They focus on what they can control.
their own movements, their own vigilance, their own endurance. They do not expect fairness, they expect continuation. Below deck, death is no longer shocking, it is procedural. And the system ensures that this remains so, smooth, distant, efficient, until the day it fails spectacularly enough that it cannot be ignored. But even then, it will try. Acceptance. When survival stops mattering. There comes a moment below deck when fear fades, not because danger has passed, but because it has become permanent. At first, every new hand works with tension in his shoulders. He flinches at loud sounds. He watches gauges too closely. He listens for changes in rhythm that others barely notice. Then, slowly, something loosens. The body cannot remain alert forever. The mind cannot carry constant dread without breaking. So it adapts in the only way it can, by narrowing its expectations. This is not courage. It is acceptance. Men begin to speak of accidents as if they are weather. It happens. It always does. Sometimes it's your turn. There is no bitterness in these words, no anger, only a flat acknowledgement that feels almost peaceful. Those who reach this stage move differently. They no longer rush. They no longer hesitate. They perform each task with careful economy, conserving effort, conserving thought. Their faces grow unreadable, expressions smoothed by repetition. They are the most reliable workers. They are also the least likely to save themselves. When something goes wrong, these men do not panic, but they also do not scramble for escape. They finish what they are doing if they can. They shut valves. They secure lines. They stabilize machinery. Only then do they think of themselves. Often that is too late. Fatigue becomes a constant companion. It settles deep into muscles and bones, a weight that never fully lifts. Sleep offers little relief. Dreams are shallow or absent. Waking feels no different from working. Men stop marking time. Days blend. Ports blur together. Faces come and go. The engine room remains unchanged, hot, loud, demanding. It becomes the only stable reality. Some men begin to take small, quiet risks. Not recklessly, but indifferently. They stand a little closer to machinery than they should. They delay stepping away from pressure a moment too long. They ignore minor injuries, letting burns fester, cuts deepen. If something happens, it happens. This is not despair in the dramatic sense. It is resignation. They no longer imagine themselves growing old. They do not plan beyond the next pay, the next watch, the next crossing. Futures feel abstract, distant, almost fictional. The present is all that exists, and the present is survivable until it isn't. Those who have accepted their fate often become the quiet backbone of the engine room. They teach without enthusiasm. They warn without urgency. They model endurance rather than caution. Younger men watch them and mistake their calm for strength. They do not yet understand the cost. Occasionally, someone breaks through this acceptance. A near miss, a sudden death too close, too personal. For a brief time, fear returns. The man becomes sharp again, alert, alive to danger. But the engine room does not allow this state to last. Routine grinds it down. Heat dulls it. Noise erodes it.
Soon, the edge disappears once more, replaced by the familiar numbness. There is a particular quiet that settles over men who have worked below deck too long. It shows in the way they look at the sea when they finally see it, not with longing, but with detachment. The ocean is no longer freedom. It is simply the other side of the wall. Some men leave the sea when they can. They take shore work. They limp into other trades. They fade into cities and ports, carrying the engine room inside them. Others return again and again, not because they want to, but because they do not know how to exist anywhere else. Below deck has reshaped their sense of risk, of value, of self. Danger feels normal now. Safety feels unfamiliar, even suspicious. When the bell rings, they descend without comment. When the watch ends, they climb back up, if they can. And if one day they do not, the system absorbs it. The ship continues. And somewhere below deck, another man quietly accepts that this is how it ends. Not with a scream, not with resistance, but with the simple understanding that survival was never guaranteed. Only work. The breaking point, when everything fails at once. Systems are designed to bend. They absorb mistakes. They tolerate loss. They continue despite damage. Until they cannot. Below deck, the breaking point is rarely a single event. It is a convergence, small failures aligning, human exhaustion meeting mechanical strain, decisions made far from heat colliding with reality inside it. It begins quietly. A repair delayed one port too long. A valve that should have been replaced but wasn't. A crew reduced by injury, illness, or death, leaving fewer hands to carry the same burden. Each compromise seems reasonable on its own. Together, they are lethal. The engines demand more. Rough seas increase resistance. Schedules tighten. Coal consumption rises. Pressure creeps upward. Men work longer watches, skipping rest where they can, bodies pushed beyond safe limits without protest. Fatigue thickens the air as surely as steam. Mistakes multiply. A gauge is misread. A warning sound is dismissed as familiar noise. A tired hand turns the wrong valve, then corrects it too late. The engine room begins to feel unstable, not violently, but subtly. Vibrations change. Rhythms drift out of sync. The ship feels strained, like something held together by habit rather than integrity. Experienced men sense it. They exchange looks. They speak in fragments. They know the signs, but also know how rarely warnings are heeded when they cost time. Orders come down from above. Maintain speed. Hold pressure. We will assess at the next port. There is no malice in these commands, only distance. The bridge does not feel the heat. It does not hear the grinding strain in the metal. It sees only numbers and horizons. Below, men obey. They always do. As the watch wears on, heat becomes oppressive even by engine room standards. Sweat no longer cools. Breathing feels laborious. Muscles cramp. Reaction times stretch. A man stumbles near a spinning shaft and recovers, barely.
Another drops a tool into water pooling where it should not be. Someone shouts a warning that is lost in noise. Pressure rises. The boiler groans again, deeper this time. A seam weeps steam. It is noticed, marked mentally, but no one can leave their post. Too many things demand attention at once. This is how systems fail, not explosively at first, but chaotically. Alarms sound, not one, several. Steam escapes violently from a secondary line. Pumps falter as water floods faster than expected. A belt slips, then snaps, whipping free with lethal force. Men scatter instinctively, colliding in tight spaces. Commands overlap, contradict, vanish. Someone falls. Someone does not get up. In the confusion, a critical valve is left unattended for seconds too long. Seconds are enough. Pressure spikes. The explosion is partial, not total destruction, but worse in its own way. It ruptures space without ending it. Steam fills the room. Fire flares. Machinery shudders violently, tearing loose from mounts. Men are thrown against walls, crushed, burned, blinded. Those not immediately incapacitated act on instinct alone. They shut what they can. They pull who they can reach. They retreat where retreat is possible. Some do not retreat at all. The engine room becomes a place of overlapping disasters. Fire feeding on oil, water surging through broken seams, machines still moving because no one can reach the stops. The ship slows abruptly. Above deck, panic spreads. Below, survival becomes individual. Not heroic, not coordinated. Personal. A man climbs blindly toward an exit, hands slipping, lungs burning. Another crawls away from heat, dragging a useless leg behind him. Someone else stays behind, trying to shut down a system he knows will kill everyone if left unchecked. Whether he succeeds does not matter. The damage is done. Eventually, silence returns, fractured, incomplete. Engines fail one by one. The ship drifts. Emergency systems engage. Light flickers weakly. Those who survive gather where they can, coughing, shaking, staring at nothing. This time, the system cannot smooth it over. The scale is too large. The damage too visible. The delay unavoidable. Reports will still be written. Language will still be chosen. But something fundamental has cracked. Passengers will remember this crossing. So will the sea. Below deck, survivors look at the ruin and understand something they have felt for a long time but never named. The system did not fail accidentally. It failed exactly as designed, by pushing men and machines until neither could give any more. This is the breaking point, and once reached, there is no return to routine. After. The men who walked away. After the engines stop, there is a silence that feels wrong. Not peaceful, not relieved. Empty. The ship no longer vibrates beneath the feet. The constant thrum that once filled every space, the sound that shaped days and nights, is gone. In its absence, even small noises feel intrusive. Footsteps echo too clearly. Voices seem too loud. For the men who worked below deck, this silence is unsettling. It does not mean safety. It means uncertainty. Survivors are gathered where space allows, on deck, in unused compartments, anywhere away from the damaged heart of the ship. Some sit wrapped in blankets, staring at the sea without seeing it. Others lie down and do not move, bodies finally refusing to obey. Injuries are counted. Burns, broken bones, missing fingers, crushed limbs hastily bandaged. Some men breathe with a rasp that will never leave them. Steam burned their lungs. Smoke scarred tissue that will not heal. Every future breath will carry a reminder of what happened below. Those who can walk help those who cannot. Movements are slow, careful, almost ceremonial. No one rushes now. There is nowhere to hurry to. The dead are laid out when they are found. Some are identified immediately, others are not. Faces burned, bodies twisted, clothing shredded beyond recognition. Names are spoken softly, tested against memory. Sometimes no name comes. These men are recorded anyway. The ship survives long enough to reach port, or is towed, damaged and humbled. Dock workers stare openly at the scars, warped plates, scorched paint, seams hastily sealed. They smell what remains of smoke and oil and something harder to place. Below deck is sealed off, not out of respect, but necessity. Inspectors arrive. Questions are asked. Answers are given carefully. Responsibility is diffuse, spread thinly across decisions, delays, conditions. No one person is blamed. The men who worked the engine room are interviewed briefly, if at all. Their testimony is noted, then filtered. Trauma is mistaken for confusion. Memory is questioned. What matters is restoring order. Some survivors leave the ship immediately. They take their pay, what remains of it, and disappear into the port city. They limp into lodging houses. They sit in taverns without drinking. They avoid heat, avoid noise, avoid enclosed spaces. They do not speak of the engine room unless pressed. Others stay, not because they want to, but because leaving feels worse. The ship, damaged as it is, still offers structure. Routine, however broken, feels safer than the open uncertainty of shore. These men are often reassigned, lighter duties perhaps, or simply returned below deck once repairs are complete. They descend again, slower now, more cautiously. Something in them has shifted permanently. They startle easily. They pause before entering tight spaces. They count exits without realizing they are doing it. The engine room never feels like just a workplace again. For some, the sea is finished. They take shore jobs if they can find them. Warehouses, factories, anything with daylight and still air. Even then, the habits remain. They flinch at steam. They wake from dreams of rising water. They listen for sounds that no longer matter. For others, the sea calls them back. Not out of love, out of familiarity. Below deck taught them a language the shore does not speak. Danger feels understandable there, predictable. On land, silence feels suspicious. These men will sail again. They will work again. And they will carry the weight of the breaking point with them, not as a lesson learned, but as a quiet burden. The system moves on. Ships are repaired or scrapped. Reports are filed. Routes resume. New crews are hired. The sea continues as it always has. But the men who walked away are altered. They have seen the moment when endurance failed, when routine cracked, when survival became personal and arbitrary. They know now that the engine room does not just demand labor. It takes pieces, and it does not give them back. Below, what remains? When the ship finally moves on, something always stays behind. Not in the logs, not in the reports, not in the language chosen to make events manageable. It stays below. The engine room is repaired, repainted, refitted. New pipes replace old ones. Fresh plates are riveted into scorched gaps. Machinery is cleaned, aligned, tested. On the surface, everything appears restored. But below deck, restoration is never complete. Iron remembers. Heat leaves its signature in warped metal and discolored seams. Fire stains linger in corners no brush can reach. Water leaves behind corrosion, silent and patient, working slowly beneath the surface. And men leave traces too.
in places avoided instinctively, in pauses taken without explanation, in the way hands hesitate before touching certain valves. The engine room carries layers of time, compressed into a single space. Each crossing adds another layer, another set of hands, another set of names. Most are forgotten, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. To remember them all would make the work impossible. Above deck, life continues as if nothing unusual ever happened. Passengers come and go. Cargo is loaded and unloaded. Schedules are adjusted. The sea offers no commentary. Few people think about what moves a ship forward. Fewer still think about who pays for that motion. Below deck, the answer was always clear. Men gave their strength, their health, sometimes their lives. They worked in heat and noise and darkness, far from applause, far from recognition. Their labor was invisible by design. The smoother the journey above, the harsher the work below. This was the trade. Those who survived carried the engine room with them long after leaving it. In the way they breathed, in the way they slept, in the way they listened for sounds that no longer existed. Those who did not survive became part of the structure itself, folded quietly into the history of steam and steel. The sea closed over them. The ship moved on, and time did what it always does. It softened details. It blurred edges. It turned lives into numbers and accidents into footnotes. But the engine room remains a reminder, not of heroism, not of tragedy alone, but of endurance, of what it cost to move the world forward during an age obsessed with speed, power, and progress, of the quiet labor that made visible comfort possible. Life below deck was never meant to be seen, only relied upon. And even now, when the age of steam has passed, its shadow remains. In every machine that demands too much, in every system that absorbs loss quietly, in every place where work happens out of sight. If you listen closely, you can still hear it. The low hum of iron, the hiss of steam, the measured breathing of men working where no one is watching, below. If you've listened this far, you've shared time with a world that rarely asked to be remembered. If this story stayed with you, if it helped you slow down, reflect, or simply rest, consider supporting the channel. A quiet like, a thoughtful subscription, or even a silent comment helps these stories continue. More histories remain below the surface. Thank you for listening. Good night.